Tarot turned on subscribers only mode. Only channel subscribers of 20 minutes or longer can send messages. Quite right too. Slow mode is on. Send a message every 15 seconds. So guys, this is in order to just to slow things down. If we find ourselves under attack from, you know, a militant atheist or something like that, or someone who's just, you know, kicking their heels in some corner of the internet without very much to do, and wants to tease some tarot enthusiasts. But anyway, that won't happen. Hi, Redwing. I think we have 6 people waiting at the moment. So I'm actually going to start, even though not everyone is here yet, because these videos do get recorded and released as recorded videos, and so it's all good stuff. And I will repeat myself once everyone joins. Hi, Faraway Star. Hi, Ash. I am fairly well, thanks. Yes. Hi, Suzanne. I've been out. It's hot as an oven in Berlin today, and we've been out by the lake, and I spent the afternoon under a tree in thick shade. Hello, Moontide 13. So I'm the sort of person who gets a suntan, even if I lie under a tree in thick shade. You know, I mean, there was dappled sun coming through the leaves, and so I'll probably tomorrow morning I'll probably be pink as a lobster. Good morning from Seattle. Talented Tadpole says hello. Michael Haveshin says hello all. That's interesting. I think let's wait a couple of minutes, and then I would like to know where you guys are calling in from. I suspect, well, you can tell me where you're calling in from. I suspect this is usually a mixed audience of people in the USA and people in the UK, because I'm speaking in English, obviously. Okay, so we have Moontide is UK. I wonder, when I look at my YouTube statistics, it usually comes through that it's more people from North America than from the UK. Oh, there's Nick. Hi, Nick. Nick is UK. I happen to know that. Oh, Faraway Star is Toronto. Talented is UK. Suzanne's Netherlands. Okay. A bit of EU. Good. I'm an EU fan. And Michelle's in Utah. I'm writing this down in a nerdy sort of way because I want to kind of like tot up everyone. And Redwing is in Edinburgh. Ah, Edinburgh. I know an Edinburgh joke, Redwing, but only you and I will kind of understand it because it's about the accent. What do the people in Edinburgh do about rates? And the answer is they set traps for them. They set traps for them. It has to be done by someone who can do the accent. My system is collapsing. So any of you guys in the US or down south who didn't get that, it means what do people in Edinburgh do about rats? They set traps for them. But the Edinburgh accent can be very charming and unusual. So, well, we have UK. 4 UK, 2 America so far, 2 North America, and 1 EU. Okay, cool. Well, if anyone else joins, just tell me, say hi and tell me where you're from, because that would be very useful to know. So on the show this week, I've decided in my infinite wisdom to have a structure, because I look around the YouTube, the tarot tube, and I notice that other people have structures, and it's probably a good idea. So, and the structure is this. We're going to have, I'm going to launch a discussion, which might turn into me just holding forth on a certain topic. And I know that you guys who tune into my channel are at all different levels of tarotting, of the tarot journey. I know that some of you guys have just discovered tarot, like a couple of weeks ago, and you're like diving into it. And I also know that there are some people listening to my channel who are experts and who probably know just about as much tarot as me, and maybe even more. So a mixture of trepidation and humility, but I would like to share some of my ideas. I'd like to share some of my concerns. I'd like to share some of my tips. If it all seems terribly, terribly basic, just let me know. If it seems helpful, let me know. And the other thing is that this is a community experience. So you guys can also come in with your opinions if I raise a question. And today the question I'm going to raise is positivistic tarot reading. For example, this thing here. This is the Ten of Swords. This is the card that Fyodor Pavlov famously said that he didn't like. He finds it boring. He finds it, what did he call it? Something like too fatalistic and blah, 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 blah. Okay, now I'll hold up some other scary tarot cards. There's the Tower. There's the Three of Swords. There's the Nine. A lot of swords here. You know, there's Death. My basic position about tarot is that we, of course, we can do what we want to do. We're free. We can jump up and down. We can read tarot standing on our heads. We are our own bosses. But on the other hand, it's also a skill. It's also a tradition. And I think it would be much, much less interesting if it wasn't a tradition, if it had just come out of the blue. We like the fact that we're sort of communing with our ancestors, aren't we, with this thing, that it comes from the old days, it comes from the Renaissance, and it's connected to the whole, you know, pagan world, the whole Neoplatonic world, and all these ideas flying around in the Renaissance, and it's got so much in it. And so we don't just pick up the cards at random without doing any research or any reading. We could, but we familiarize ourselves a bit with what these cards have meant for people in the past, and then we kick off from there, and then we read tarot cards as we decide to read them. So here we are now in the 21st century, and we're not interested, at least I'm not interested in consulting an oracle and being fearful. Oh, what if the oracle tells me my life is completely screwed up? Oh, what if the oracle tells me, you know, I'm going to die? Oh, what if the oracle tells me we're all doomed, and this sort of thing? I think this is clearly for me absolutely out of the question. And I do believe that in the old days, people were a bit more fearful and a bit more doomy about oracles. If you read the life of Marianne Lenormand, who's had those cards named posthumously after her, she was a very, very famous tarot reader in 18th century France. She read for Empress Josephine, Napoleon's wife. And she could be quite scary, the sort of readings that she gave. And she had this thing that she didn't predict death. That was one of her rules, but once or twice she did predict death if she got cross with someone. But I mean, she sort of thought that there were bad cards in the deck. And I think until very recently, until the 1970s, people thought there were bad cards in the deck. You know, Eden Gray, writing in the 70s, she was a great modernizer. She said that, you know, that the three of swords, it could mean civil war. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have said that in view of the sort of current political climate. But what I want to say is that I think as modern people, we have to live in the present. I want to live in the present, and my present is no pessimistic predictions. I'm only interested in communicating with some kind of intelligence in some kind of other dimension, because I'm only interested in a helpful collaboration. And every time I do anything psychic, I ask for protection. I do not want to be muddled or confused by, muddled, confused entities or intelligences that might be floating around. I never have problems with that stuff because I'm not looking for it. I'm not expecting it. And I usually have a little meditational thing to keep my space clear. So today I would just like to say this, that, we're going to be reading for ourselves or for clients, and that's going to come up, or that's going to come up. I've got the court cards. We could talk about them. That's going to come up, the 5. We know that's transformation, don't we? Death. The 9's going to come up, and I think quite a difficult one. The Tower's going to come up, and the 10's going to come up. And I would like to get the ball rolling. And by the way, greetings to New Jersey, and greetings to South Africa. Great. USA. And Carson is in South Africa. Oh, Florida. Georgia, Florida. So I would like to get the ball rolling by very briefly telling you how I approach, the 6 most obviously difficult cards in the pack. And you can tell me whether you agree or disagree. You can tell me whether you have any supplementary meanings. And in the second half of the show, we can maybe do a couple of readings, and we'll just see if the cards, send through some of these supposedly negative or problematic cards. Okay, 3 of Swords. I'll get the ball rolling. I think 3s are all about movement. So, and by the way, I'm an RWS system reader. I'm not really a Marseille system reader, so I might be not using classical Marseille meanings here. I think this could indicate that something difficult is happening or is about to happen, but it's necessary for your progress. For example, in the 2010s, I think it was 2006, I wrote and produced a play in London. I was incredibly proud of it. And we got some money from the Arts Council and like 20 grand or something, and put it on in Oval House Theatre, rehearsed it with really good actors and put it on. And I thought it was going to make me, into a successful playwright. It was called Wild Fruit. And there wasn't very much attention from the critics. And Time Out, which is at the time was a significant magazine in London, sent a critic, and it was this young man of 19 or 20. And my play was a fairly mature play about sort of traumatized, crazy gay people living in Brighton. And this young man didn't understand it. He hated it. And he published in Time Out this absolute assassination of me specifically, and said he felt sorry for the actors. And this card came up. This card warned me that something was going to happen. And that review broke my heart, and it meant that I didn't write or produce another play for 10 or 15 years. And it kind of almost sort of finished me as a writer. Weirdly enough, it was a sort of a necessary part of my progress, It was necessary pain. So I think the 3 of Swords always moves you along. Okay, and so for me, it doesn't have to be a catastrophe, but I tell clients this is a necessary, difficult conversation. Conversation, quite broadly speaking. The 10 of Swords, I say nadir, if you know what I mean by that. In other words, the low point of a cycle. And if it's the low point of a cycle, it means that the only way is up. And this card comes up. I read tarot for myself like three or 4 times a week, And if I see this card coming up, I kind of like, it doesn't mean the nadir, the low point of my entire life. It might be the low point of the month or the low point of the week, you know. So I think that that's a useful meaning for the Ten of Swords. Doesn't have to mean you're completely screwed. Let me carry on through this and then tell me what you think. Five of Swords. Classically, that seems to mean defeat. Doesn't have to be the end of the world, because I think it means accepting defeat. And I also think you can expand defeat to mean, okay, something didn't turn out the way you wanted to turn out. Something didn't go your way. We're constantly wanting to control life, but sometimes we don't get the result we want. Doesn't have to be a catastrophe, but sometimes we have to say, oh, I didn't get the result I wanted, now I'm going to move on. Eight of Swords, restriction, not such a disaster. Nine of Swords, I think, for me, that's catastrophizing or allowing yourself to be pulled down a rabbit hole. Again, you know, that's not a disaster either. And lastly, the Tower. I think that's maybe one of the most difficult cards in the deck. So I would like to turn it over to you guys. Can anyone out there, Jay Carlos? Yes, I'm gonna be accepting questions in the second half of the hour. Okay, Jay Carlos. So if you want one, just save it up for 7:30 Greenwich Mean Time. So can anyone out there watching today suggest a positive meaning for the Tower? That's my challenge. And then, because I think this is a really interesting card, I think it's very, very unclear where it comes from. And I think that there are all sorts of different theories as to where it comes from, what its cultural significance is. Ego destruction. I think, Josh S., I think that is absolutely fine. Because ego does, in a sense, yeah. I think ego destruction is an important part of, you know, a spiritual journey. Not a word I like, but a spiritual progress. If it does mean ego destruction, can we find a way of putting that? Imagine there's like a sweet, vulnerable client who's come for a tarot reading. Is there a way we can put that which doesn't sound quite so frightening? I mean, does it mean that, does our whole ego have to be blown apart, or could it be smaller than that? Bruno Brogio, I see the Tower as cicada shedding. Now, is that a misprint? It's a skin exoskeleton. That's the time it is most vulnerable. True. It's necessary in order to continue growing. Well, absolutely. It's interesting that all the meanings for the Tower that we could have, they seem to be something about something falling off or something going. It's a bit similar to that, isn't it? Because something has to die with the Death card, but the death is also a harvester, and there's things growing with death. Death is quite connected to the earth, I think. The Tower. Nick says, an incoming much needed flash of help from God. You see, I think that's a very, very workable meaning for that. Yes, Nick, I like that. And you go on to say, out with the old, in with the new. Some people say the Tower was the Tower of Babel, don't they? But we would have to turn that legend round into something positive. And Bruno says, a cicada is a kind of, cicada, you do mean that, is a kind of singing, I see, okay, like a cricket. Cicada is a kind of singing insect, okay, I didn't quite see how it fitted in with your, A cicada shedding its exoskeleton. Okay. Exactly. So you're shedding a skin. Snakes sometimes shed their skins as well, don't they? And then you emerge, and crabs do as well. They shed their shells. Faraway star. I see it as a dismantling of a long-standing belief system. Okay, so the tower is a construction. There's kind of like a deconstruction going on there. I think what I would advise as an old hand is that, you know, we all find the meanings for these problematic cards that work for us, and we just make a note of them in our heads or on paper and say, well, that's the meaning I want it to be. And then the spirit guides are completely capable of doing that. So of responding to that. So you're setting up, if you like, an alphabet for yourself. And then you say, that's my alphabet. And then the other intelligences communicate with you through your alphabet. So there could be, you know, we could be, as a room full of people here, we could have conflicting ideas about the tower. And one person could say it's a flash of help from God, as Nick says. One person might say, you know, it's shedding the skin. They both sound like the old turning into the new, don't they? But there could be two people with contradictory meanings for this card, but it wouldn't matter as long as the meaning works for you and as long as you can work it into your vocabulary. Tarapolitan. As a liberation from seclusion in old paradigms, or Babel Tower, destruction of the ego from monotheistic religion. Definitely. Michelle says, a piece of information that changes everything you previously believed. Now, Michelle, okay, I think that's, again, absolutely workable. Do the tower before it does you. That's how I feel about that card. It's funny, isn't it? Because it does have that slightly sort of alarming feeling. Like there is something slightly scary but exciting about a thunderstorm. I'll pitch in here and I'll put something else into the mix. And this comes from Paul Hewson, who's a tarotist I like. And, you know, it's not to say that he's right about everything. He goes his own way, and some people like Helen Farley disagree with some of his theories about tarot. He has a theory that the tower refers to Jesus going down into hell, I think, and driving the demons out of hell, or driving the demons out of the house of God. But there's some story about demons being driven out of a house. I think in Marseille decks, this is sometimes called Le Maison Dieu, isn't it? Nick, you'd probably know that. Sometimes this is called the house of God. So something's happened to the house of God, and in most versions of this, not in the Aquarian, because the Aquarian has bad major arcana, you see people falling out of the tower. So it could be that the bad entities are being driven out of the space, which is, again, a bit like what we've all been saying today. So if I boil it down to one word, it's purging, you know. And if I'm about to go into a project or something and I feel that I'm not going to get on very well with the people here, I think to myself, well, they are triggering me. They're triggering my neuroses. And if I just face up to it, if I turn up and allow myself to be triggered, and I take a deep breath and I don't do or say anything mean, and I just take responsibility for my own neuroses, and I just purge them, you know, purge them out of my system. And that for me is my way of making the tower work. So I could say to a client, you're going to be in a kind of like a purging situation here. It might trigger you, but you're going to be purging those old demons out of the house. Okay. Bruno says, how would you put it to Aquarian when the tower does signify a tragedy in a reading? Bruno, I don't quite know what you mean. How would you put it to Aquarian when the tower does signify a tragedy in a reading? Could you just tell me more about your question? I don't understand it precisely enough to answer. While hopefully Bruno's going to type in some more there, we got J. Carlos asking if I was taking questions, and I would like to take some questions in the second half. Well, message was retracted, J. Carlos, then you said good to see you. But they don't have to be incredibly profound questions, but I think it might be interesting to see if we do 2 or 3 readings in the second half, see if any of these supposedly problematic or negative cards come up. And then I would just like to read them for you in an entirely positivistic way. I think what I wanted to say in this live stream is that some people who don't know very much about tarot are fearful about it because they think it's something about reading the future and what if the future is bad. I think I choose to believe that we create the future and our beliefs create the future. So what we're doing with tarot, it just has to be relentlessly positivistic. And that's one thing that Jodorowsky says in his book, which otherwise I don't like. But he says that at the end, that it has to be absolutely 200% positivistic. But let's see what Bruno says. There seems to be a collective effort to make the challenging less challenging. I think the challenging is going to be challenging either way, Bruno. I mean, in my case, with the story about the 3 of Swords, I drew the 3 of Swords for the month in which my play went up, and my life was destroyed in that month. And so the 3 of Swords, to some extent, you could say, predicted a heartbreak. It predicted a disaster. I wouldn't really use the word tragedy because I think tragedy is a bit extreme. But because it was, because of the way that I now understand the 3 of Swords, and incidentally, that reading I did in 2010, and it worried me in those days. I now think the 3 of Swords also means progress. So I now look back at that month where I got that bad review in London for my play. And I was completely humiliated. I mean, it was in all the newsagent shops. It was like, Robert Farrett is a really bad playwright. It's so crap. I was embarrassed for the actors. All these awful lines. This horrible story about these horrible gay people. Why can't they pull themselves together? And I was completely humiliated. And I thought that's the end of my career. But on the positive side, on the personal growth side, it was in a horrible way necessary for me because my theatre practice wasn't as good as it needed to be. And if you put on a play in London, you're putting on a play in one of the world's major theatre cities, you cannot expect people to be nice, and you can't expect the critics to be soft and charitable. They will be ruthless. And I chose to put that play on, and the critic was ruthless, and I really, really suffered. But I would never say to a client, 3 of Swords, you are really, really going to suffer next month, and it'll absolutely destroy you and break your heart. I think that's what I'm trying to say. I think I would say, that looks really challenging. But I want you to remember, whatever happens, that this is about forward movement. It is a step ahead. It is a part of the progress of your life in a very real way. That's what I meant. Hello, 999. Bruno, I hope I to some extent answered your question. I think it sounds very nuanced what you want to say. And I'm not quite sure if I've answered you, but stay with us and do tell me more if you want to. Okay. Moontide 13. One meaning for the Three of Swords that I found in a book was absorbing loss through sadness in order to regain happiness. Absorbing loss through sadness in order to regain happiness. I think one way or another you have to go through it, don't you? Oh, thank you, Bruno. Oops, what have I done? Pressed the wrong button. We're at the half past. So if anyone has a question, do ask me. I'd also like, while I'm here, to just, because I'd like these videos to be a bit of a resource. And you probably know that I'm writing a book, but often when one talks, one says more interesting things than when one sits down and writes. So I do want to tell you about my ideas while I'm here. I just want to tell you about some positivistic ways of reading the four court cards. Page of Swords, and actually I don't want to be too positivistic about the court cards. I think they should be a bit spicy, especially the Sword family. I don't think they're nice necessarily, the Sword family. I am actually interested in the sort of the spiky side of the Sword family. I think the Page of Swords traditionally was a spy, and I find that super interesting. So you could say, if the Page of Swords comes up, oh, well, maybe you are being observed. Maybe you need to be a little bit aware of the fact that you are not entirely operating in private. Maybe you're even being gossiped about, or maybe a certain person is observing you and judging and gossiping about you. I don't want to be too positivistic about these court cards. But I think they're really interesting if you allow them to have a bit of spice. The Knight of Swords, I think, is maybe one of the only court card that I think is a bit of a bad news. I think the Knight of Swords maybe causes more problems than he or she solves, because they are so much in their head, and so much head so full of concepts that are not necessarily grounded, and they think they're defending everyone, and they can be very loyal, but they can also cause battles. The Queen of Swords, traditionally a very, very bad luck card, but I think she's a survivor, isn't she? She's traditionally a widow, but she has survived, and also she's along with the Knight, she's a highly, highly intellectual person. She does relate to Pallas Athene, the goddess of wisdom, and she symbolizes the triumph of mind over muscle. In King of Swords, I don't really have much negative to say about him. I know some of you don't like the King of Swords. I see him as an Aquarian card. I think he officially related to King David in the Bible, but I also see him a bit like Solomon, the wise judge. And I think if you look at him in the RWS, he's much lighter than the Emperor. He's got a light throne. He's got butterflies flying around. I don't see him as an oppressive patriarch, even in this Aquarian deck. All the swords cards do look a bit grim with the purple skies. Let's just check what you guys have been writing to me. Carson. There you go, Carsten. You pulled the Three of Swords a day before your team were told that your department was being closed at work. It was a challenging time indeed. So it was a necessary conversation to have, right? And you went through it and you went to the next stage. I agree. Bruno, you mentioned that you read for yourself 3 or 4 times a week. Do you repeat questions often? How do you feel about repeating questions to the child? No, I don't repeat questions. And when I first started, I was always the temptation to repeat questions. No, I don't. And I would like to emphasize, from the point of view of my experience, I don't think you should repeat questions, because I think that you're having a conversation, and I actually think the answer is probably always there in your mind. It's just a matter of letting the answer come through and not blocking yourself. So please, just when you're reading for yourself, it's often the first, you look at the cards and it's the first interpretation, or if there's no interpretation, ask for an illuminating card. And if you still don't understand, ask for another illuminating card, because the guides, or whoever they are trying to get through to you, and they will always give you the cards that are most likely to make you understand. So no, I don't repeat questions. And the way I read cards is it's almost a bit like prayer, really. On the days when I need it, which is sort of like every other day, I put down a card. I mean, if I feel really confident about the day, I don't do this. But if I feel like I need help, which is about half the time, I say to the tarot, could you help me to focus by giving me one card that tells me, well, what is my theme for today? What do you think is going on in me today? That's card number 1. And card number 2 is, and what's your how do you advise me to handle this energy? And it could be 1, 2, or 3 cards in the advice position. But that is it's a bit like meditating, where you're not really sure how you feel. You're not really sure how you feel about the day, or how you feel about yourself or your life. And you allow the tarot to suggest gently, well, you're still grieving for your mother, or today you're feeling disempowered, or today you're not grounded, or today you're antsy and you just want to get out of the house. And that's card number 1. And then the other 1, 2, or 3 cards give you some indicators, like, so, 8 of Batons, do something quickly. Ace of Swords, use your brain, use your head. And so it's all quite sort of conversational, the way I use tarot. I don't use tarot for myself as major life-changing therapy kind of readings. If you're reading for a querent who only has 1 tarot reading a year, then it's different. It's different. And that's why tarot vocabularies have to be workable on different levels. You need sort of light meanings and in a sense, heavier, bigger meanings. 999 ASMR says, from a numerology perspective and for the colors of the card, could the Three of Swords have a different meaning than a traditional RWS? Are you talking about Three of Swords Marseille and Three of Swords RWS? Because if that's the question, then yes, absolutely. And I don't think there is an ultimate meaning to any tarot card, but I think every tarotist is setting themselves up as, if you like, someone with a crystal ball of sorts, and you are creating your own dictionary of meanings. And I advise, getting help from other people, not making them up for yourself. But there's so many contradictions out there in the tarot sphere that you have to make choices. You have to choose the meanings that you like. Moontide 13, Three of Swords, the card encourages us to make clear, conclusive changes to regain lost balance and to grow from painful experiences. Sorry, I'm a slow typer. The book is Phantasmagoria by Ian Daniels. Should I check that book out? The book. Phantasmagoria. Gloria in Daniels. I'll see what that's about. Okay. Nick says, my mum asks if you could talk a little about the Queen of Wands, please. Well, Nick, then your mum's a bit of a devil, because the Queen of Wands, of course I can. Because the Queen of Wands, I think, is a tarot archetype that requires us all to be very grown up and adults. Because she, I think, is a confidently sexual person and has been judged in the past as being, a whore or a harlot, because people judged women who were in touch with their sexuality and who felt good about their sexuality and said, oh, it must be a whore. Now, I'm still on the Aquarian here. So the Aquarian is not, no, damn it. I need now to go to the RWS because Queen of Wands in the RWS is a very particular picture. The Queen of Wands in the RWS is probably modeled by Ellen Terry, this rather androgynous, you could almost say a rather non-binary lady, but this really sort of formidable actress of the late Victorian age who was a friend of Pamela. And she comes up a few times in the RWS as a model. So she's, she is presenting almost like a king figure, isn't she? And she's sitting there, she's man-spreading, as they now say. She's sitting there with her knees apart, and she is facing the audience. She's confronting us, but actually she's looking away because she's got stuff that she's going to be doing later. She's got a black cat, so she's felt to be psychic. Wands are fire energy. She's got lions behind her. She's got a sunflower. So there's a bit of Leo there. Leo women are often glamorous and pushy. I think Madonna's a Leo, isn't she? And just confidently female. Now this could be, you could be confidently female, confidently male, confidently non-binary, but I think it's confidently sexual. And I think this is somebody who is absolutely at home in their whole body, and including the erotic body, and is happy to take up space in the world, and can be very charming, can be charmingly selfish, but is someone who's not really going to take no for an answer. So it's a particular energy. It's kind of pushy, but it's also highly feminine. That was my Queen of Wands speech. Okay. Following Nicholas' question, do you see any overlap between the Queen of Wands and the Empress regarding sexuality? I suppose so, yes. But I think there is a difference. Ooh, and magically enough, there they both are. I think there is a difference, which is I see the Empress as beyond being a goddess. She's like the feminine principle of the whole universe, the female principle of the whole universe. Whereas I see the Queen of Wands as a person, and I can think of one person in my life who reminds me of the Queen of Wands, well, two now. And I think that as human beings, we're not immortals. We're making the best of life. We're trying to make the most of life. And I think human beings are ambitious. And I don't think the Empress is ambitious. You can see the way she's quite comfy, isn't she, the Empress? But I think the Queen of Wands has got things that she's going to get done, she's going to achieve. And the other thing I'd like to say about the Queen of Wands is that cat is also quite confrontational. It's not just a pussycat. It's staring at us, saying, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on YouTube, but it's sort of, telling us to get lost, isn't it? It's in control. So yeah, I think the Queen of Wands has an agenda. She has ambitions. She has desires. I think the Queen of Wands is very much about desire and the sort of like the sanctity of desire. And I'm quite into that. I'm a sort of a tantrist. I think the desires are good. They are not bad. They connect us with ourselves. So this has turned into a bit of a speechifying thing, hasn't it? The Tower of Vampires is going out of print. Karen says, your videos on the courts was really extremely helpful for me to understand those cards better. Thank you. Thank you. My video on the courts, I think, was highly inspired by Paul Hewson's book, Mystical Origins of the Tarot. There's stuff where he talks about the connection between court cards and mythical and historical people from history, which is very, very helpful. And it's so much better than, some of these modern packs where you just have a woman holding up a pentacle or a cup, and it's just not, it's not meaty enough. Nick, my mum says, thank you. She enjoyed it. Good. I'm pleased. Moontide, a familiar. Yes, exactly. It's her familiar. I think that there's a part of me that wants to do at least one reading this evening, because I'm here, aren't I? And we've opened up this subject. Oh. Bruno says, I'm currently reading The Devil's Picture book on your recommendation. I'm loving it. It's a good book, isn't it? It's not really all about tarot, is it? It's about paganism, really. But I think Paul Hewson's a really good writer. And the thing about his second book, his two books, tarot books, were separated by 30 years or something. And he was going to, apparently, he decided to write an update of The Devil's Picture book 30 years later, and then he sat down and started to prepare to do that, and then it just turned into a new book, which is Mystical Origins of the Tarot. So I think those two books are really, really good, and they're easy to read. Karen, would you do a reading for me regarding career? Yes, I would. I'd be pleased to. I want to do a reading tonight. Karen, could you then, I'd like you to phrase that. The answer is yes, I would. But could you ping me a question, like a question about your career? At the moment, it's too open. So ask me something about your career, or just rephrase it, if you would. And I'm here, and in fact, I will start shuffling for you. And I'm going to use a very positivistic deck, which is the, what's it called? The Attor Tarot by Robin Attor, in which everybody is a bit cute and a bit simplified. Because it really lightens things up, doesn't it? I think this is one of my favorite tarots, the Sun. So Karen, I will shuffle, but I would like you, please, I guess you're going to have to wait 15 seconds before the machine will let you type it back in. But I'd like you to be a bit more specific. And S says, can I get a reading too? Yes, and then that will be all, because I think that'll take us through till the hour. So Karen, I'm waiting for your rephrasing of the question. And S, ask me a question. Please try to make it fairly specific, and I'll see what I can do. And it may be that we get one of these supposedly problematic cards cropping up. And yes, I have put a little thing, I put a little function on this live stream that you have to wait 15 seconds between sending in one message and the next, but it's only 15 seconds, and that's just to trip up the trolls a bit. Let me scroll down. No. Karen, thank you. I have taken on a new role. How could I be most effective in this new position? Very good. Okay. Let me just decide what sort of spread to do. A new role, a role, a role. Okay, I'm going to do the spread that I described to Bruno earlier on. It's the what's my issue spread. Okay, regarding Karen taking on a new role, a new career role, and how can she be most effective in this new position? And I'm assuming, Karen, that your pronoun is she, because I recognize the name as feminine, but correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, this is a what's my issue and advice reading for Karen regarding the new role in her career. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Very interesting. I'm going to put it on my magnetic board here. These cards are huge. I use magnetic buttons on a magnetic board, okay, so that you can see the cards. Okay. Karen, this is an issue and advice spread for you. That's the issue, and these are the advice cards. So the issue, we have 8 of Pentacles, a kind of like a head down, hard work, productivity card. And the advice, Chariot, Sun, and a reversed 7 of Pentacles. So I let you have a look at those, and you see that button is just to keep it there. It's not part of the card. Have a look at those, and then I'm going to put them back on the table, and I'll tell you what I think. No challenging cards there. No difficult tarot cards there. Okay, so your issue, I would say, is productivity. And guys, I'm going to do 2 readings and then I'm going to stop, okay? Oh, Tanted Tadpole, I didn't see your question. I promised to read for S. So forgive me that I need to press on in order to not to let my energies be dissipated. So for Karen, your issue is productivity, and your advice cards are, you know, it seems to be full steam ahead, really. You can afford to be pushy and to really. This is the career card par excellence. Chariot is career. And it's the same word. So embrace it and really work it, and don't be afraid of stepping on other people's toes, I think. Because Sun card, you are going to get recognition and applause in this role. And I would go so far as to say that here, 7 of Pentacles reversed, with the Seven of Pentacles, the person takes a break in tending the garden. So I would say you can't rest on your laurels, you can't pause. It has to be a continuous movement of energy. It has to be a continuous effort. So in other words, if possible, don't take a break. Don't let up in pushing at the moment. This is not the time to relax. Okay. I'm a bad tarotist because I'm getting everybody's questions in the wrong order. Karen, that was your reading. I'm going to take a deep breath and let it go. S says, I want to do something relating to illustration and animation. Should I pursue it? I won't do a yes, no for that. But let's just look at you with that job decision and see how you resonate with it. Illustration as an animation. S, illustration and animation. Okay. Okay. We have a challenging card, S. We have a Five of Swords. So we have Page of Cups, Four of Cups, Five of Swords. That's you with regard to this question. That's the role or that career path and the energy that it has, the energy that you would encounter there. And that's the relationship between the two. In a sense, that's the result. So, okay, so you've asked the question, you've got a reverse Page of Cups. And Page of Cups is, for me, it's the openness to your own subconscious and your own inspiration. It seems that there's some kind of, there's a lack of flow. So it seems that you're not quite able to hear your own inspiration or your own dreams or your own intuition here. So there's something kind of slightly the advice would be to turn it upside down, right? To turn it the right way up. The advice would be to please make a big effort at this time to listen to your dreams, your actual real physical dreams. What do you dream about? When you wake up in the morning, is there any thought in your head, any advice from the other side, from the dream world? And the Four of Cups as the energy that you would get from this, this decision to pursue this path, it's not a card of much movement. It's a card of difficult sort of dissatisfaction. So what I'm getting, S, frankly, is that this is not particularly auspicious. And we have the result of you pursuing this, the Five of Swords. Well, that's the necessity to to admit that something didn't go your way. So what I'm getting is, frankly, that at this time, it's not a good idea for you. I think that, and again, I mean, the classic meaning of this card would be defeat. So the combination of those three cards, it feels like, this is actually reversed, isn't it? It feels like there's a sort of, you're not quite, what's the word? You're not quite in touch with yourself over this question. That's what I'm getting. You're not quite in touch with yourself. You're not quite in touch with your intuition over this question. And that path just sort of leads you into a kind of dissatisfaction, and it leads you into something not going your way. Now, that's not to say that you can never go down there, but it seems, what I'm getting is that there's some groundwork, there's some personal groundwork that needs to be done before you go there. Because as things stand, the combination of that plus that looks like the classic meaning of that card, the defeat. But I hope I have talked about that issue in a way that is not destructive. Do you see what I mean? And I'm not saying to S, you can't do that. I'm not saying to S, you don't have that in your future. But I'm saying those two energies somehow, actually really that root energy needs to be looked at first before you can have a sort of a happy relationship with that job and before you can make a success of it. So dreams, S, and meditation, and see what comes up. It's 8, and I haven't been strictly fair about reading the comments scroll. I missed a question from Talented Tadpole, I'm afraid. And Talented Tadpole, it looks like a question that would take a good 10 minutes. So I'm going to, if you'll forgive me, I'm going to pass on it, and I'm going to slowly wind the reading down. And if you want, we could find a way of doing that reading in another context, if it's really important to you. Positive energies for the readings here from Brazil. Thank you, Bruno. Tentative said no problem. Thank you so much. Hi from England. David B, hi to you. We're finishing, because we finish at 8 o'clock GMT, but join us another time. We usually start 7 o'clock Sundays GMT. Not every Sunday, that is. It's like once a month, and it's not entirely regular, but when it happens, it's Sundays at 7 o'clock GMT, and I will announce it on my channel every time I do one. Okay, S says thank you so much. 999, thank you, Robert. Glad to catch your stream. Missed the sound of your voice. Oh, that's nice. Thanks, Robert. Interesting as ever. Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Moontide. Thank you, Nick. Oops. Hi from Oregon. X Hansen. We're just finishing. Join us next time. Faraway Star. Great live stream as always, Robert. Learned a lot today. Thank you, and see you next one. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was great. I got good energy out of it. I feel energized myself. That was really great. Goodbye from Montana. Oh, quite a lot of people from North America. Karen, really enjoy your advice videos and streams. So glad I caught this one. Thank you. 999. I am from Oregon too. Cool. Okay, everyone. I'll stay online till the clock strikes 5 past, and then I will press that button. Josh S says, bye, sweetie. Bye, sweetie. That's what Patsy says in Absolutely Fabulous, isn't it? Sweetie, pass the stolly, sweetie. Thanks for a lovely live again. Thank you. Thanks, sweetie. Thanks, everyone, for joining me. I really appreciate all your support. And it was a nice, lively live tonight. And so I think I will stick to this time. Sundays, not Saturdays. Bruno says, thank you again, Robert. Bye, everyone. Bye to Bruno in Brazil. So, yeah, there will be one in August, and then we'll see about September. It's my holiday month. Bye. It's 5 past. I'm off. Bye.